fact that you never won a Melbourne Cup. And Australian racing history just doesn't sit right without George Moore's name there amongst the Melbourne Cup winners.
Well, I agree with that shot. I'd have loved to have won a Melbourne Cup. I should have won.
You had 19 goes, you know.
Yeah, I know. It was bad average, wasn't it? I should have won the year I ran third.
On Karana?
On Karana.
56.
That's right. That's the first year back after being sent out.
Yeah.
I had a beautiful position. I was posied beautiful, about sixth on the rail. And there was a horse up in front called Sir William, who I didn't want to get near. He would be lead. He used to hang bad. And a certain Melbourne jockey come along and nearly put me under the fence about 6.5 from home, about 1,200 metres from home. And when I got up off the ground, I was out 3 deep outside of this Sir William. And I went round him and pushed him back on the track because they're all getting up inside of us, and a couple got knocked down. And I kicked on and went to the front, and I only got caught the last bit. I got beaten half a head and half a neck or something like that.
Evening Peel and Red
Yeah,
Craze.
but if I hadn't have been interfered with, and the worst part was I got 2 months of pushing Sir William back. But they never said a damn word to the jockey that nearly brought me down 2 furlongs before. But that used to happen to Melbourne to me all the time. They could do it. They used to think I was the water polo guys. Some of them, they used to just bang me and forget. And then nobody would say a word, but if I banged anybody, TJ he was the same. They had him up, they had me up, any little thing.
Well, I think it's about time we introduced your darling on this show. Right. Your wife of 52 years, although Iris tells me it seems more like 100.
I don't know about that. It doesn't seem like that to me.
Mrs. Iris Moore will join us after this break on Inside Racing. And as we go to break, our cameraman's going to take a stroll around the Moore's magnificent penthouse here on the Gold Coast. 100, or is that an exaggeration?
No, it feels like 100, John. You'll kill me later.
Thanks very much.
Can you put in a nutshell for me your description, your interpretation of life with George?
We've always been in the fast lane, but not anymore. Now we're older. It's been very exciting. I've managed to travel the world, our children also, because of George's extraordinary ability to ride. We've had our ups and downs, but as you can see, we're perfectly happy now.
I'm happy to stay here. I don't want to go to Sydney.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
Take me back to the very first meeting. Now, he can only be described as a cradle snatcher because you were 16 and a half years of age.
Yes. He took me to the beach.
That was good of him?
That was the... Yes, it was. Yes. That was our first date.
Can I butt in here?
Yes.
I had an umbrella, but I had the records, the latest records, a gramophone. And I went away, and when I come back, I couldn't get a seat. There was about 8 guys all around looking at her and playing my records. So I went and got a wigwam, you know, one of those wigwams that you... I put that around her, so that got rid of the guys.
No, they're
only
interested in his records.
Yeah,
the latest record.
Probably a Bing Crosby number.
That's right.
Right, yes, that's quite right.
Yeah.
Iris, you had the worry and the trauma of a jockey husband. You also had the worry and trauma of a jockey's son.
Yes,
So you had to go through it twice.
yes. And as you get older, even with George riding, it is a trauma. And then with Gary, twice as bad. And it was for George, wasn't it?
Oh, not too
We
bad.
worried.
But you haven't mentioned the day you took John to the race for the first time. He ran off the track and finished in the river.
Fisherman's Ghost, is
yeah,
it
right
called? At Camden?
Fisher's Ghost picnic racing.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I had Bert Lilly bringing me up to date how he was going. He come back and he said, he won the first. I said, must be no runners. At the fourth race, he's won another one. I said, God, must be no starters for sure. Anyway, next thing I hear, John Moore had fallen off and gone in there's a lake in the middle somewhere. He finished in the lake. He said, nothing to it, Dad. I said, oh, no, I'm not. That true?
Yes.
There was the director.
So you were at a Sydney race.
I was at
Randwick.
Randwick. Bert
And
Lilly
Irish, you
kept
were
saying to
swatting
me,
flies at Fisher's Ghost.
Yes, yes. I took the picnic luncheon.
Yeah.
And I was the cheer squad, along with John's girlfriend at the moment, at that moment. Yes.
Do you recall one day at Rose Hill when Gary fell in the shadows of the post from a mare called Birthright,
Yes,
trained by Philolotta?
I remember.
George rode, I think, Royal Renee, or the Snowburner, one of the Bill Stripe horses. And George came galloping back,
And jumped off his horse.
jumped off his mount and virtually let the horse go to check on Gary's condition. It was a dramatic moment.
It was, I remember clearly. And we took Gary in our car to the hospital. And I remember cradling him in my arms on the back seat. It wasn't necessary for an ambulance. George had checked that.
Irish George was no natural lightweight, and there were times he had to waste pretty hard.
Dreadful,
Now, all jockeys get a little niggly when they're fasting.
of course.
How was he?
Oh, he could be quite difficult, but it was horrendous what George went through. I couldn't have done what he did to see him take off the weight that he did. I think I recall, we only raced on Saturdays when we were first married. So that meant that it wasn't like he was riding every day when we were overseas. And he would put on weight during the week, even though he was dieting all the time, and the children and I could eat anything, and George would just watch us. It was misery for him.
I enjoyed it.
During his golden years, he had a cult-like following with the Sydney punters. He was a very, very famous person in Australian sport. And you must have been very proud on those days at the racetrack at Randwick or Rose Hill, when every move he made inspired some sort of reaction from the crowds.
Yes.
And we're talking about big crowds in that era.
Enormous, yes. I remember George winning on the Diver. I've never forgotten. The Doncaster,
Yeah, 93,000.
93,000.
That's the Randwick record crowd to this day, you know. 1948, Easter Saturday.
Was it?
Yes.
It's still the record.
I remember that. We weren't married, but I was there.
You wonder how they'd fit him in.
Yes, and we didn't find it uncomfortable. I guess we're spoilt these days.
Iris, in the days of pre-jockey managership, obviously the phone would never stop ringing with offers of rides for George. Did you take a lot of those calls, and did you have to become conversant with the form?
No. No, George rode mainly for Tom Smith, and no, we didn't have a lot of calls that I can recall,
Yeah.
because
His rides were locked in at the
I
track.
think they must have been,
Yeah,
yes. He was so popular. He rode, as you know, so many winners. Wherever we were.
Yeah.
Extraordinary.
Now, Iris, can you recall his happiest moment to a race win, his happiest reaction?
Yes, I can. I was expecting Michelle, and he'd just ridden 2 winners after being disqualified. And I've never seen him happier.
What about his greatest disappointment? Can you remember him walking in on any occasion devastated?
No.
Really down?
No. George had a habit of, after the races, He was the first to admit if he rode a bad race, and he'd punish himself, telling us, my father and I usually, what he should have done, how he should have ridden the horse. He was his own worst critic.
You mentioned Michelle, your only daughter.
Yes.
I've seen many photographs here today in the penthouse.
Yes.
But the one that caught my eye and the one that touched me the most was this beautiful photograph moments after George had dismounted from Royal Palace after winning the English Derby, and your little girl, aged about 9 or 10, is running to Dad,
Yes.
breaking the rules.
Yes.
She really shouldn't have been there.
That's right. Yes, that was a very exciting day, especially for Michelle. She has that photograph as well, and she treasures it, like you can see we do.
What is there for the Moores to do? Any ambitions remaining?
Yes, I'd like to sell up and move to Sydney, because we're in our twilight years and we no longer have any family here. We're alone. I hope I can talk George into it.
I'm not saying a word.
But he does miss the family.
You've come a long way for a little bloke from Mackay in Queensland. It's been a long journey, and it must have been a very happy one.
I enjoyed it. It was fun.
We've had a great life.
No,
Thanks to your ability.
There'd be little you'd change.
I've had a great life.
Well, watching you both there together, Darby and Joan,
Yes.
I can't think of a nicer way to terminate our interview than for you to plant a kiss on Iris's cheek.
Thank you.
Pleasure, John.
Australian racing has produced many brilliant jockeys in the 30 years since George Moore called it a day. But most of them can only dream of emulating his achievements. The Sydney record of 10 consecutive premierships is there to be broken. 15 winners of 29 races over the 4 days of a major carnival may never be seen again. There's no Golden Cup on his list of big race wins, but it's a stunning list nevertheless. The true measure of his greatness came when he took his Aussie riding skills overseas and showed some of the world's best jockeys a triple to. Whenever racing aficionados rate the best jockeys of the 20th century, most will have George Moore in the top 6. Some will have him number 1.